For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Kim Cameron. How's it going today, Kim?
It is going great. What a Friday night it is, you know? It's beautiful. We're in Miami Beach.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a little bit of a difference for Friday nights between the two of us because you're in Miami Beach and I'm in Waco. Like there's a little bit of a climate difference and a little bit of a scene difference there, I guess.
Yeah, although it's supposed to drop down to like 55 tomorrow, so that's
wow.
actually quite cold for us.
Yeah. I'll have to talk to my dad because he didn't mention that when I was talking to him this morning because they have their boat down in Isla Morada, and I was complaining about how we're supposed to get all this snow, and he was just like, probably like, okay, I'm just not going to bring up that it's supposed to drop to 50 tomorrow, and just
Well,
kind
that's
of
at night. During the day, I think it's still going to get up to 66, so we can't complain too much.
Yeah, I got you. So how are things going down in Florida? Things seem to be getting better with the COVID stuff going on, or how are things going down in Florida?
Well, I think we're probably the same as everybody else. I think the difference is that Florida is not shut down. So I think we're as far as cases and things like that, we're pretty much with where everybody else
Yeah.
is.
Are you
It's
guys?
a
Are you
pandemic,
guys?
it's still a pandemic. So
Yeah, you guys are having like shows and whatnot for music, right?
we do have live shows. I mean, they're smaller.
Yeah.
It's not obviously it's not the same because you're spaced out. There's lots of masks going on. There's all those social distancing. And your bands are much smaller. It's really there is live music, but it's really kept to 2-3 players at the
Yeah.
most. It's
It's definitely probably favoring more of the acoustic solos and duos just
Absolutely.
because the tight space now that a normal stage would be with the
Right.
social distancing rules and what have you. So that
Yes,
makes
that's
sense.
exactly right.
So before we jump into everything, I kind of want to, for the people that listen to my podcast that may be not familiar with who you are, can you kind of give us a brief breakdown on what got you into music?
Okay, so my name is Kim Cameron, and I am a singer-songwriter, children's author, and a filmmaker. Seems like way too many titles, but those are my titles. Um, I've been in music, kind of all my life. I started out playing the clarinet when I was, first grade, I guess, and did marching band and was in orchestra and all those kinds of things. Graduated out of that into musical theater and into a really bad cover band, but it was a lot of fun. And did cover bands for quite a while. It was in 2008 that I decided, after a family member was going through am I going to make it, not make it situation with a bout of cancer. And I ended up writing a song, which I'd never written a song before, and about him and about how I felt. And then I took that song to my guitar player and we kind of played around with some melodies and a song was born. And I had this thought that, well, it might be fun to record the song.
Yeah.
And so we went into studio. We didn't know which studio and just kind of looked one up in the yellow pages, went there, recorded a version of it. And a guy pulls me aside who was the engineer in the studio. And he says, you have something kind of with this song. he said, but I think you just need to find a good producer that can like bring it out in you.
Mm.
And he recommended somebody, and I started working with them, and lo and behold, I got hooked. And within a year, I had my first album. And then I was just super hooked because I just got addicted to songwriting.
Yeah.
And I'd always been performing as a cover band, and I married the two together. Within a year and a half, I was touring. I did a VA hospital tour, and
Nice.
then I did a tour across half of the country. I went from the East Coast to the Midwest, and
Okay.
then the second tour that went all the way down to Florida. At the time, I wasn't living in Florida. All the way down to Florida and back up the East Coast, and you know, I was there. I was like, this is who I am. So that's kind of where I started when it came to music. About 600 songs now into my song catalog. So
Nice.
uh, it's a little overwhelming sometimes, but
Yeah.
um,
At least with the giant with a song catalog that massive, it keeps your shows interesting, and you don't have to worry about burning yourself out on playing certain songs over and over again.
yeah, you don't. Although it's one of those things because every I have enough variety that depending on the venue or
Mhm.
depending on what the show is or what time of day it is, I really can be like more of a lounge chill act, or I can do my house music,
Yeah.
or I can just take it down to acoustic. So it's fun that I have enough to be that variety
Yeah.
showcase. And it's funny because we were supposed to do this big sort of heavy, um, very classical rock kind of show with some of my first songs. And our tour bus broke down. This was in
Oh.
New Orleans.
Mhm.
And so, but we had to get to the gig. So we ended up, walking off the bus, and I said, okay, everybody grab what they can, which is basically just a bunch of guitars,
Yeah.
and we ended up doing like this little acoustic thing, which they weren't expecting, but it turned out to be really, really fun
Yeah.
because the show has to go on, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
um, it is fun to have that kind of depth of catalog that you can pick and choose depending on and be have this variety. But
Mhm.
I think in general, people like to put you in buckets of
Yeah.
what you really are. So I'm probably really known for my dance music,
Yeah.
and I think it's hard for people to think that I do anything
Yeah.
besides that.
Yeah. Well, and you see that a lot with musicians that uh work or get known in what hold on. Let me rephrase what I'm about to say. I've talked to a lot of musicians that they sign like they'll sign on with a band and they get known as like the rock musician, but realistically, the singular musician, it's like a country musician or a hip hop act or just like whatever. So it's an interesting turn of events when they're known for one genre, but they have all this music for other genres and trying to kind of um, get people used to that, I guess is where I'm going with that one. So like I'm sure it's a learning curve for a lot of your fans to kind of get you if they like you for your house music or your but they come to a show and it's more of a laid back acoustic session. Is there songs that kind of cross over, or is it like there's specific songs for each kind of genre?
Well, I mean, every song you can because they're not written. I mean, the way I write songs is in the simplest, either using keyboard or with a
Hmm.
guitar anyway. So I'm a believer that most songs can be done, some version of them acoustically. It just depends if you're doing a super house song,
Hmm.
when you strip it back to its very basic, acoustic format,
Yeah.
it's almost unrecognizable, right? Because,
Yep.
and especially if you have any dubstep in there, right?
Yep.
Because all of those pieces that makes it so much fun in a club are not going to exist in an acoustic version. Doesn't mean the song's bad. It's just if people are trying to hear what they're used to, they're
Yeah.
not going to hear it, right?
Yeah.
It's just dance music is layers and layers and layers of production,
Yep.
and it's so now you're taking out what 40 layers of production, and it's going to sound different. There's just no way to make it anything but an acoustic,
Yeah.
very
Well,
subdued version.
that, and then it's also a completely different vibe. Like
Yeah,
when you go like the acoustic music, you're going to be in one specific frame of mind to listen to it, but in house music, you're going to be in a completely different environment. Or like acoustic music, you're going to be in one environment, and then you go into like house music, you're going to be in a completely different environment. And even though you're playing the same song, like you had mentioned, you're pulling back a lot of the production aspects, or the yeah, production. And so even though they're the same songs, are going to sound different. But
yeah.
you know, so you just released some new music in December, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
I've released actually a bunch of new music. The dance single I've released is "Show Me You Feel,"
Hmm.
and actually I'm shooting the music video for that tomorrow. So hopefully that will be out in the next month. And and that's a nice classic, I'd say, electro pop
Yeah.
dance song, 106 BPM, yeah, although it feels a little faster than that.
Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, I released the movie soundtrack for my animation film that's going to be released. Hopefully, we'll have it done by February. So that soundtrack came out, and then just a couple days ago, my children's album "Connecting to Animals" came out as well. So I've
Nice.
been releasing all sorts of stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, right now is the perfect time to be releasing a lot of music because COVID. People need
Yeah.
the music, and since your music's kind of all over the spectrum, like the soundtrack for your movie, kids album, you got your house music, and then you just released a single as well, or is that all part of the house music?
The
Uh,
single I wouldn't this particular single I wouldn't put in the house, but it is part of my dance music
okay,
repertoire. Yeah.
okay. So, and I'm referring to "Show Me You Feel."
Yes. Show me you
Okay,
feel. Exactly.
just make sure I'm on the right page, and we're not talking in like cross purposes and whatnot. So, I'm very interested in talking about the film aspect and acting and all that stuff because that's something I did back when I was in school and whatnot. So we'll definitely get into that. But so for "Show Me You Feel," we'll start there. What was kind of the story behind that one, and why is that kind of the standalone single out of the bunch of music that you've released?
You know, over the last year and a half, I put them all under the bucket of an album called Carpe Musicam, even though all of them have really been released as individual singles.
Hmm.
But I kind of put them all into that bucket because they just all fit there. This one is it's another. I'm notorious for writing romantic and love songs, and this is another love song. But it's one of those where it's about how two people can't seem to extract themselves from their electronic devices, and so it really talks about, can you just like put that down and pay attention to me, and stop looking at your phone, and stop, we have more than just words on text to experience with each other.
Yep.
And it kind of dives into, I really wish that we could just throw that away, pretend like we're in back in when we were younger, and we
Yep.
would read all those fairy tales. And I wanted to be that, Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, one of those characters. I loved him. I wanted to be that girl. And there was always that classic love story that went with that girl in those stories. And that's kind of what this song is about, is if we just threw some of that electronic stuff away, what would happen between us? Would
Yeah.
it be that magical fairy tale relationship that we read about when we were children?
Awesome. Awesome. And so, where how long's that song kind of been in the works? Was this something that you started working on during the pandemic, or were you working on it prior?
I did. I wrote quite a few songs during the pandemic. This one was a pretty recent one where I got inspired. I want to say in October. Was it October? I think maybe
Mm.
the months in pandemic seem
Yeah.
to be going on. It was either October or November. It wasn't that long ago,
Mhm.
but it just it felt that way because I feel like in pandemic land we've gotten even worse with our electronic
Yep.
devices, right? Because especially during extreme lockdowns, where what else are you going to do?
Yep.
And that was the way you could connect to people. And my fear is that we're so tied to them now that how do you get away from it? How do
Yeah.
you leave it?
Well, actually, it's interesting you bring that up because I was watching a video this morning talking about trying to get away from our electronics. I was watching this video about how the country's been slowly digitizing itself and everything's going online. And so basically the entire video was about how the pandemic just accelerated that. Like we were headed there anyways, but this pandemic just made it worse. So now everything's online, like business is being done on, just all this stuff. And so I just don't see a realm where it's going to get any better, because it's funny as you were talking about that. I was thinking about when I was down in Alamorada, I specifically tried to make an effort to leave my phone where I was staying and not bring it out, like, because I was there with my family, I wanted to kind of be there and chat with them, but after about 20 minutes when we realized, well, there's really nothing else we can do, my dad would break out his phone, then my mom would break out her phone, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, I'm like, "I guess I'll go get my phone then," like, "Okay."
So
I
true.
I was trying really hard to just kind of be there and be present, and then, once 20 minutes went by, it's like, "Okay, I'm bored with you. What's new?"
Well,
Yeah,
and that's the problem, right? Because we shouldn't it shouldn't be that way, right?
no, yeah,
It's gotten to a point where you go to dinner with somebody, or like you said, you're at your parents' house, and okay, we've eaten, it's been what, 5-10 minutes, everybody gets to their phones,
yeah,
and when did that happen? When did that start? I mean, and how do we get out of that? I mean, why can't you have a full meal without looking at your phone?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
It's the and this is something that I've been trying really hard to deal with, is it's the, "Oh, I posted something on Instagram. I need to see what the comments are, or I need to see how many likes it has."
Yeah.
It's just the verifying that what I said was as witty as I thought it was, or the picture was as cool as I thought it was. And so now I've turned off every notification on my phone other than like my work stuff, but like I don't hardly get any more notifications.
I did the same thing, quite
Yeah,
honestly. I took off all my notifications. I couldn't take it anymore.
yeah,
Plus, they don't stop, right? Ding,
yeah,
ding, 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 ding.
yeah,
I just like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
yeah, absolutely. And I noticed like every week, how on like the iPhone, it'll tell you your weekly usage. For the first like month, it was like your cell phone usage is down 40%, 70, and it just kept going and going and going. And then now it kind of finally bottomed out a little bit, and I'm like, okay, cool. So what happens if I turn my notifications back on? It's going to do the reverse, but probably quicker. So, you know, But like you said, I don't know when it started. I don't know what the answer is to prevent it or curve it from taking over, you know?
Well, I guess we could blow up all social media sites and that would take care
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
Everybody would actually have to use their phone to actually call people, talk to them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I when I work, I much prefer calling people, but then I find that that comes to bite me in the butt because they're like people will be like, "Oh, I never said that," because I don't have it in writing. And so now it's like anytime I do something on work, it's like, "All right, fine. I'll just email you. A, so I have it in writing, and B, you know, I don't have to worry about you turning around and saying, "Nope, I didn't say that." You know,
Yeah,
it's
I hear you.
it's one of those things. But so you've been staying busy during the pandemic. You got all kinds of music releasing. I'm kind of interested. What's the children's album about? Because that one kind of escaped my research. Uh, because I'm not like looking for children's music, so it's what's kind of the story behind the children's music?
Well, during the middle of one of my tours in the Caribbean, I met this little girl, and this was in the middle of one of my sets, and
Hmm.
we started talking about this, random things, and then she happened to mention that she had this love of octopi.
Hmm.
And it struck me as funny because you think of little girls and you think of, well, if they like sea life, then they like dolphins, maybe they like starfish or whales, but usually octopus, they don't, doesn't really come up when you're talking to little girls. And so I ended up writing this song on the beach the next day with my guitar player called Mr. Octopus. It was later that he suggested that I write a story about around that song.
Hmm.
So when we got back about a month later, I did, and then we decided to make an audiobook out of it. Well, after several months and released it, and it's a really cool audiobook. We had parents that said, "Oh, this is really cool. Can you do a printed version of
Hmm.
it so that my kid can listen and read along at the same time?" So that threw me into writing, printed books. The intention was never to go into the print form. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about it. So now I developed a series, wrote a series. It's called Superpowers,
Hmm.
and it's stars a little girl who goes on vacation, discovers when she's in St. Thomas that she has these magic powers when she gets close to the seagrass, and she can talk to fish. So she befriends an octopus and a starfish, and they go on all these adventures together. So right now there are 5 books strong,
Nice.
and audiobooks are part of it. And it's from that I launched this children's side of my business, which includes some albums.
Hmm.
The recent one is called Connecting to Animals, and it's just got I, I would say calypso beats
Hmm.
that are fun. You can dance to them, you can sing along to them. The messaging is really about um, if we connect to animals, we really are going to find ourselves taking care of our environment, because the more you connect to animals, the more important you see it is that the way we treat our environment, the way we treat our animals, the two are connected.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of spoken word in there, but mostly it's songs. And so that's the album that just got released this week. And it does also marry very nicely with my animation film, which
Hmm.
is probably going to be at the end of the day, 85, 87 minutes long. So it's a big film, all 2D animation.
Nice.
And it has some of those songs, a couple of those songs that are in the album are in that movie. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm excited. It's my
Nice.
first full length feature film. So
Nice. Well, since we're on the topic, let's go ahead and jump into the film aspect. Did you animate the film yourself, or did you work with a team that helped you animate it?
So I am not an animator.
Okay.
I did the screenplay and all of the storyboards,
Hmm.
and so I am the producer and the director as well. But I have a team of animators, and thank goodness I do because I can't even imagine what this would look like if I attempted to do any sort of animation.
Yeah, I got
But it's coming out, and it's just beautiful. I mean, animation, unlike film, film you kind of think about things to the minute level.
you. Hmm.
Animation you have to think about things to the second level, and so it's a very detailed, tedious process.
Hmm.
It's a fun process, and it does require you to think really outside of the box. I
Hmm.
mean, super outside of the box. And because you're trying to, I don't want to say you're trying to be realistic, because I'm not trying to be realistic, but there's certain things that an octopus, his tentacles can do, I mean,
Yeah.
and not do, right? And then you also have limitations as to what 2D animation can really do. So trying to marry those things and yet show and the expression that you want and the emotion you want with those limitations, it does, it requires to think about things very differently
Yeah.
than you would if you had a human being involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the animated feature is Superpowers in Search of Blue Jay's Treasure.
You got it.
And I see, just looking at your Facebook page here, you won a best screenplay for the Malta Film Festival.
Malta Film Festival. There's also a festival down in Chile. I won quite a few
Oh.
for the screenplay, which I'm super grateful for. It's very exciting. It's gratifying to know that the idea that I had is being recognized, and
Mhm.
hopefully I'll get that once we put it out there, in the theaters as
Yeah,
well. But yeah, it's done well. We've gotten several awards on the trailer,
nice.
and on the soundtrack itself, we've gotten several awards. So it's going in the right direction.
Yeah. And your hope is to have it in theaters and do like a theatrical release, or
I will probably do well. I already have offers in 5 countries for a theatrical release.
Mhm.
In the US, I probably won't because theater works quite a bit differently. The marketing model is very different in the US.
Mhm.
I'm not ruling it out, but right now the intent is just to put it on the different network platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially right now with the whole COVID thing, oh, like the OTT platforms are probably the safer bets right now, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, do you have an official release date for the film yet, or is that not quite been
Yeah,
determined?
I don't yet because it's not quite done. I'm in
Mhm.
post production. I anticipate it being done, I think, next month.
Mhm.
But then, it's going to be all negotiated
Promotion.
when it actually gets released.
Yeah.
I'll probably sneak in some kind of premiere down here in Miami Beach just because I'll be anxious to show it a little bit. But the release date will really depend on who I partner with.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, you've won a few awards for this animation, and you said this is your first feature film. What's are you do you also act in the film as the narrator, correct?
I'm the narrator, so I have a really small role. As a matter of fact,
Mm.
I kept myself out of it because I did the vocal production for all of the characters, and so I knew what I wanted, and so I really didn't want that to be um, I didn't want myself part of that. I really wanted to be on the production and director side for the most part. But the
Mm.
narration, I wanted to set the stage.
Mhm.
So you'll have a little bit of me at the beginning and then a little bit of me at the very end. And then that's it.
Yeah,
That's all I'm in.
I gotcha. Awesome. And so, how do you kind of balance your film career, your music career, your writing career? You got your hand in so many kettles, so to speak. How do you kind of balance everything?
Well, in that regard, because I'm not a big COVID fan. But in that regard, COVID helped me out because I couldn't tour.
Hmm.
It really allowed me to just focus on the movie, and so I did spend the majority of COVID working on the film, even though it went slower because my animators were on lockdown, so they couldn't go as fast. But it ended up not not being a bad thing, I should say.
Yeah.
And so that allowed that balance. I think by the time the film's done and it's ready to launch into the world, knock on wood that we have vaccines going out. I think then I'll be able to start touring, for real again. So
Mhm.
it may just kind of work its way out, and
Yeah.
I may not have that big of a balance problem.
Nice. That's awesome. Uh, and you brought up getting back out to tour. You've toured all over the world, correct?
I have. I've been really
Where's been
fortunate.
the most interesting place you've toured or that you've gotten to play?
Wow. It's hard because I loved when I performed in Marrakesh, even though that was one of those acoustical
Hmm.
performances. But I mean, Marrakesh was just like so wow to me. Dubrovnik was so amazing. Like the place that we actually performed was on this island in this old monastery with
Oh
the
well.
top off, and so you had this lights. It was just this really surreal experience. And I loved the tour in China. I mean, um, we had about 5,000 people there, and it was broadcast all over the place, and it was a very unique. The Chinese, the way they watch
Yeah.
live music is so different than what we were used to anywhere else. So it was a really cool experience. We got
Hmm.
treated really well. Um, I mean, Europe is always fun
Yeah.
to perform in because they just seem to love. I'm not saying the U.S. doesn't love live music, but Europe just like they need it. Like you can see they're just very supportive of any kind of live music. So I do enjoy going over to Europe quite a bit.
Nice. I haven't been to Europe yet, but going to the UK and that specific region is definitely on the bucket list of places that I want to visit before I die. So
Oh yeah.
I yeah. Um so being or outside of the pandemic, when there isn't a global pandemic going on, how many shows a year do you usually play? How often are you usually playing?
Um, I do a lot of festivals. A lot of stuff happens in the summer and the fall for me.
Hmm.
And then typically I'm out doing performances during Grammy Week out in LA.
Hmm.
So those are my heavy times, I would say. So summer is pretty packed, fall's pretty packed, and then usually right when the year starts is pretty full. And then I usually have this um, little bit of a gap in between, the late winter and springtime.
Hmm. What are some of the music festivals you're usually playing? Do you have like ones that you know every year you're going to get invited to, or is it kind of different every year?
It's different every year.
Mm.
I mean, I'm always asked back to perform at the Comans for the Cure, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. Um, the the festival, which I was hoping would be a yearly festival, I'm hoping it will still come back and do another year. Was the festival I performed at in Dubrovnik? It was called the Wave Festival.
Mhm.
So I think they're trying to. They lost their location, so I think they're trying to find another location to start it up again.
Yeah,
And then the festival I performed in China, they're supposed to have that on a yearly basis. So we'll see what. I don't know how long it's going to take China to get back
yeah,
into the groove. I
yeah,
think they might be another year and a half away from
yeah.
doing that.
Luckily, it seems like a lot of festivals are trying to make it work. I haven't a lot, at least a lot of the festivals that I usually go to haven't like permanently closed down or permanently shut down the idea of uh ever going out. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to word that, but we do a lot of work down in Islamorada with some of their smaller festivals. So like the Baygrass Bluegrass Festival and Bay Jam, which features a lot of more local musicians, and then Gasparilla over in Tampa. So luckily for us and the festivals we work with, it seems like they're going to keep on pushing and figure out a way to make 2021 work for them. But obviously, COVID, you don't know. So,
I see Florida's festivals probably coming back to life sooner than others.
mhm,
Maybe like some of Georgia's festivals coming
yeah,
back because they've been kind of the more open states.
yeah,
But I don't see the others coming back very. I mean, the Grammys just announced that they were pushing back
yeah,
the ceremony until March. We'll kind of see if it stays that way or what they end up doing.
yeah. The one that's kind of got me concerned is I haven't really even seen anything because since I'm here in Waco, South by Southwest, when it comes around in March, it's all the rave. And people haven't really been talking about it this year like they do in normal years. So it's got me kind of curious if that's actually going to happen this year or if it's going to be on a smaller scale.
Yeah, I mean, I I had fun when I went to South by Southwest. It was years ago, but I think the problem they have is it's just so ginormous. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't even know how you would do social distancing. You'd have to really limit how many people you allowed in, which would be strange for them. I mean, that's part of the South by Southwest is just the ginormity of all these music lovers and musicians coming together in one town, and it's overflowing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while it's possible, it would definitely be a different vibe.
Hmm. Absolutely. Have you thought about going back out and doing some more like solo acoustic stuff just to get out and start playing or
And I have, yeah.
oh,
I actually that's what I've been doing sporadically. I would say been about once a month
hmm,
since August. That's exactly what I've done.
okay,
Is more of on that acoustic side. So it's
yeah,
been fun. It was the first time was like, oh wow. I mean, this is what it's like. I haven't really been performing for 6 months,
yeah,
and it was weird. I had to get my sea legs back on.
yeah.
The second time was a little bit better. Third time was a little better, but it's I definitely miss that experience of performing live.
Did you experiment with any of the like virtual shows that seemed really popular early on during the pandemic?
Yeah, I did about I want to say about 5 or 6 of them,
Hmm.
which was it was a great distraction when you're locked down. I think the last one I did it was like at the 6th or 7th week mark, and so I was trying to do my hair, which I desperately needed. Like my bangs were like down below my. It
Yeah,
was terrible. I was trying to figure out how is it that I can look appropriate on camera looking
yeah,
like this. I mean, I so needed to have the beauty salon treatment, but none of us could go at that point, and so it was interesting looking back at. I look at the photos. I thought, wow, I really needed a haircut.
yeah, yeah.
But that
I
was
mean,
fun.
I think a lot of people kind of went through that at least early on. Like I know I did like the self haircut thing, and luckily I didn't have to go out anywhere because my hair looked ridiculous. Like I'd missed like a whole patch in the back of my head and didn't even know it until my mom or my parents came to visit me in May. And they're like, "You realize you got a patch in the back of your head, right?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I didn't know." Like, you know, and so yeah, ever since then, it's like, okay, I'm not cutting my own hair again because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we missed all of our beauty salons, haircutting people. We can't live without them. That was really clear.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, even now, I don't even like going to the barber because it feels like I'm getting interrogated every time I walk in. It's like, take your temperature, ask a million questions, and it's just like, man, I'd rather look like an idiot. Let me just cut my own, it's one of those things. But you know, um, So, being that we don't know like what 2021 is going to look like, what's kind of the plan moving forward once you get your animated feature released and kind of get those wheels rolling?
I've taken the position that I gotta believe that things this summer are going to be normal. So I am right now planning on touring,
Okay.
and um, I figure I'd rather plan on it, let them cancel it. I know lots of festivals are right now, booking artists with the
Mhm.
anticipation that they're going to be doing something.
Oh yeah.
So I decided I'm not going to wait. I think that would be the biggest mistake I could
Yeah.
make. So I'm going to assume that we go forward as planned.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, and the good part behind that about like just going out there and getting yourself booked for shows that may or may not happen is eventually those shows are gonna happen, and so maybe it's you're in to get invited back, and so you're still guaranteed, so, like, there's definitely a bunch of ways to look at it, a bunch of positive ways to look at it, by being proactive and kinda getting out there.
Absolutely. That's all
Um,
we can do.
yeah, absolutely. Where are you kind of at creatively right now with your music? Are you always writing, or do you have a tendency to take breaks? Where are you kind of at creatively right now?
Um, I've really never taken that long of a break. I think the only time I took a substantial break when I was touring super heavily, like I had toured nonstop for a good 3 months. I came back and I just needed to just be,
Mhm.
and I lost the urge to write.
Yeah.
I didn't have I, it was probably the longest writing break I took, which was I think it was almost 6 months, maybe. It was quite a few years ago that this happened. Um, but since then, I've never encountered that. I kind of get the itch to write a song at least once a quarter, sometimes every other month.
Mhm.
Um, this year was more of an exceptional year with the number of songs, but due to COVID. But yeah, I like to keep. I think it's important as a songwriter to keep things moving and to keep um, ideas out there
Yeah.
and see what happens with this song if you can come up with something different and I think my biggest problem these days is coming up with good lyrical content. I feel like I've already written about everything that you could possibly write about when it comes to relationships. So
Yeah.
um, but you know we'll find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, during the pandemic, have you kind of experimented with your sound at all? Have you looked at the opportunity of going into like different genres? Like, do you see a world where maybe you release like a punk album, just like started experimenting with your sound and your influences?
Well, I've released um, rock songs. I've released soft rock songs. I've released adult contemporary,
Mm-hmm.
a jazz song, children's songs. I feel like I've done quite a few
Hmm.
genres. I don't think I can, even though I love like reggae and Latin, I don't feel like I have the feel of it
Yeah.
to do it respectfully. And the same is probably true with country music.
Yeah.
I've just, you know, I'm not sure I have the ear to do that. Maybe if I was around a bunch of really, some country artists that felt like they could mentor me, I could do that. But for the most part, I've kind of dived here and there into various genres. So I do like to play around with it, but it's the other thing is that my fan base is largely in that dance.
Yeah.
So if I wig them out too much, I'm not sure what they
Yeah.
feel about
Yeah.
that.
I got you. I completely got you. Um, But before I let you go, one thing that we like to do on Live and Amplified is pass on knowledge to younger musicians. And, we want to make sure that musicians that are just kind of finding their footing get going on the right step. So from your perspective, from all the knowledge that you've picked up from touring all over the world, and just releasing building a catalog of 600 songs, what's one thing you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got started performing?
What a great question. I wish I knew the business better when I
Mm,
started because I would have done things differently if I really understood the music business.
mhm,
I would have done things smarter.
mhm,
Um, but I didn't know it. And even though I asked everyone, I just wasn't surrounded by the people who could really give me the right insight to how it how it worked, and what the what your role really is, what somebody else's role really is. So if I had that knowledge, I really would have probably saved myself a bunch of money, a bunch of
yeah,
headaches. But you know, on the other side of it, I learned so much, and
mhm,
some of it was very costly learning. And so I look at it like, well, I kind of paid for another college degree,
yeah,
and it just felt like that. Like I
yeah,
graduated, music, business music school or something, you know. So I don't necessarily regret it, but I wish I had known, if I'd known now what I was learning then,
yeah.
yeah.
It'd be a completely different career, but maybe you wouldn't be the same. I don't know. Like I get what you're saying. Like it make you feel better, but or make you feel safer knowing what you know now, but kind of you wouldn't be the person you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I was like, what am I saying? Yeah. No. Okay. Um, but so if anybody wants to kind of follow you online or listen to your music, where can they find you? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Well, I'm everywhere. I'm from Pandora to Spotify, Deezer, all those guys. But the best thing to do is if you go to my website, which is www.sideeffectsmusic.com. At the top there are all my social handlers.
Mhm.
I'm pretty good about posting things on a daily basis of things that are going on or upcoming releases or gigs that I have or whatever. So, uh, and I think I'm pretty good about responding back. So yeah, follow me there.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to end this on the most polarizing question I can ask you. Pineapple pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Nice. It's just firming the fact that it's a coastal and southern thing. Like,
Well, I did grow up in Southern California, so
mm,
I'm with you. But no, I'm a believer.
okay, nice. I grew up in Chicago, so it's like to me growing up, it was that pineapple does not belong on pizza whatsoever. But now, just kind of talking and meeting new people, it's like, nope, that's definitely just like a Midwest thing. So. But once again, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute blast sitting here chatting with you. Um, and if anybody wants to follow you, hopefully they will do that. Go check out your music, your check out your music, check out your feature film when it releases, and hopefully we can help you win some more awards with the animated film.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you guys later.
Bye.
Cool. We are good. All right.